In a small village nestled between rolling hills and thick forests, there was born a girl unlike any other. Her name was Amara, which means grace in the village's ancient language. From the moment she entered the world, it was clear she was different. Amara's skin was as dark as midnight, contrasting sharply with the sun-kissed tones of her kin. Her hair, a mass of thick, tightly coiled curls, gleamed with an otherworldly shine. Her eyes, the most unusual feature, were a striking shade of emerald green, a color unseen in the village. The villagers were a superstitious lot. They believed that Amara's unusual appearance was a sign of something otherworldly. Her mother, Zuri, loved her dearly and saw her beauty as a gift. But many others were not so kind. Whispers of witchcraft and curses spread like wildfire. Mothers would pull their children away when Amara and Zuri walked by, and fathers would mutter prayers under their breath, seeking protection from what they did not understand. As Amara grew, her differences became more pronounced. She was quicker to learn, showing an intelligence and curiosity that outstripped her peers. Yet this only made the other children more resentful. They would taunt her, calling her witch and cursed one. They would mock her skin and her eyes, saying she was not one of them, that she did not belong. Amara tried to ignore the cruelty, but it weighed heavily on her heart. She would often retreat to the forest, finding solace among the trees and animals who did not judge her for how she looked. There, she would lose herself in the wonders of nature, forgetting for a while the harshness of the world beyond. One day, as she wandered deeper into the woods than she ever had before, Amara stumbled upon a hidden grove. In its center stood an enormous baobab tree, ancient and wise. Its gnarled branches reached skyward, and its trunk was covered in strange carvings and symbols. Intrigued, Amara approached the tree. As she touched its bark, she felt a warmth spread through her fingers, a connection she could not explain. It was as if the tree recognized her, welcomed her. That night, as Amara lay in bed, she dreamed of the baobab tree. In her dream, the tree spoke to her in a voice like rustling leaves. "You are special, Amara," it said. "You have a gift that others do not understand. But you must be strong, for your destiny is intertwined with the fate of this village. Do not let their hatred break your spirit." When she awoke, Amara felt a newfound sense of purpose. She decided she would not let the other children's cruelty define her. She would prove her worth, not just to them, but to herself. Despite her resolve, the days that followed were not easy for Amara. The children's taunts grew more vicious, fueled by the whispered fears of their parents. The village elder, a stern man named Bakari, called a meeting to discuss Amara. He stood in the village square, his voice booming as he addressed the gathered crowd. "Something must be done about this girl," he declared. "Her presence brings unease. We do not know what power she might possess, or what misfortune she might bring upon us." Zuri stood to defend her daughter. "Amara is just a child," she pleaded. "She has done no harm. She is as much a part of this village as any of your children." But Bakari would not be swayed. "We cannot take risks," he said. "Our ancestors taught us to be wary of that which we do not understand. We must protect ourselves." The villagers murmured in agreement, their fear outweighing their sense of fairness. They decided to impose restrictions on Amara. She was no longer allowed to play with the other children. She was not to attend the village school. She was to stay away from communal gatherings. This isolation was devastating for Amara. She felt like a prisoner in her own home, shunned and unwanted. Her only solace remained the forest, where she could be herself without fear of judgment. Each day after her chores, she would escape to the hidden grove, spending hours beneath the baobab tree. One afternoon, as she sat with her back against the tree's trunk, she heard a rustling in the bushes. A small, timid voice called out, "Amara, is that you?" Amara turned to see a boy from the village, Kofi, standing at the edge of the grove. He was one of the few who had never taunted her, but he had never defended her either. He looked nervous, glancing around as if afraid of being seen. "What are you doing here?" Amara asked, surprised. Kofi hesitated before stepping closer. "I wanted to talk to you," he said. "I heard the elders talking. They think you're dangerous, but I don't believe them. I've seen you in the forest, how you care for the animals and plants. You're not a witch." Amara was taken aback. No one had ever spoken to her this way before. "Thank you, Kofi," she said softly. But why come now? Kofi shuffled his feet. I guess. I was scared before. But I don't want to be scared anymore. I want to understand. Maybe if others see that you're not dangerous, they'll change their minds too. Amara felt a spark of hope. Maybe she agreed, but it will take more than just you and me. Together they hatched a plan. Kofi would help Amara show the village her true nature. They would start with small acts of kindness and bravery, hoping to slowly change the hearts and minds of their fearful neighbors. The plan was simple but challenging. Amara and Kofi decided to begin with the children, believing they were more open to change than the adults. They hoped that by winning over the younger generation, they could gradually shift the village's perception of Amara. Their first act of courage came one morning when a terrible storm hit the village. The heavy rains caused the river to swell, flooding the fields and threatening the homes near its banks. The villagers scrambled to protect their property, but it quickly became apparent that they needed more hands to help. Amara and Kofi saw an opportunity. Ignoring the fearful looks and whispered protests, they jumped into action. Amara's knowledge of the forest proved invaluable. She knew how to construct barriers from branches and stones to divert the water. Kofi rallied the other children, showing them how to help without getting in the way of the adults. At first, the villagers were wary. They watched with suspicion as Amara moved with confidence and skill, directing efforts and lending her strength wherever it was needed. But as the hours passed and the floodwaters began to recede, their attitudes started to shift. Amara was not a danger, she was a savior. By the end of the day, the immediate crisis was averted. Exhausted but triumphant, Amara and Kofi returned to their homes. That night, as she lay in bed, Amara felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps this was the beginning of change. In the days that followed, Kofi and Amara continued their efforts. They organized cleanup crews to repair the storm's damage, planted new crops to replace those lost to the flood, and helped care for the younger children while their parents rebuilt their homes. Slowly, the villagers began to see Amara in a different light. She was still different, but now her differences were viewed as strengths rather than threats. One evening, as they worked together to build a new fence around the schoolyard, an elder approached them. It was Amina, one of the village's wisest and kindest women. She had always been more open-minded than most, and now she smiled warmly at Amara. "You have done well, child," Amina said. "You have shown us that your heart is pure, and that your differences are not to be feared but celebrated." Amara felt a swell of pride. "Thank you, Elder Amina," she said. "I only want to help, to be accepted." Amina nodded. "Change is slow, but it is happening. Continue to be brave, and you will find your place among us." Encouraged by Amina's words, Amara and Kofi redoubled their efforts. They knew there were still many hearts to win over, but they were determined to succeed. They had tasted acceptance, and they would not stop until it was complete. Just as it seemed that Amara was beginning to be accepted, a new challenge arose. A mysterious illness swept through the village, striking down young and old alike. It started with a fever and a rash, then progressed to severe weakness and delirium. The village healer, Mama Kessie, was at a loss. None of her remedies worked, and more villagers fell ill each day. Fear and suspicion returned with a vengeance. Some whispered that the illness was a curse, brought upon them by Amara. They said her recent acts of kindness were a guise, a way to lower their defenses before unleashing her true power. The progress she and Kofi had made began to unravel. Desperate to help, Amara went to Mama Kessie. "There must be something we can do," she pleaded. "We can't let them suffer." Mama Kessie looked at her with weary eyes. "I've tried everything I know," she said. "This illness is unlike any I have seen. But perhaps you can help. You have a connection to the forest, to the ancient tree. Maybe there is a cure we have overlooked." Amara nodded, determined. She returned to the hidden grove, her mind racing. As she sat beneath the baobab tree, she closed her eyes and reached out with her thoughts, hoping for guidance. The tree's voice came to her again, as gentle and reassuring as before. "Amara, the cure you seek lies within the forest. There is a plant, the moonflower, that blooms only in the light of the full moon. Its petals have healing properties that can counter the illness. You must find it before the next full moon, or it will be too late." Amara thanked the tree and hurried back to the village. She explained what she had learned to Kofi and Mama Kessie, who both agreed to help. They gathered a small group of volunteers, including a few of the braver villagers who had come to trust Amara. The search for the moonflower was arduous. The forest was vast, and the flower was elusive. They searched day and night, guided only by Amara's intuition and the occasional hint from the forest's creatures. As the full moon approached, their hope began to wane. On the final night, just as the moon reached its peak, Amara spotted a faint glow in a clearing. There, nestled among the underbrush, was the moonflower. Its delicate white petals shimmered in the moonlight, a beacon of hope. They carefully gathered the petals and rushed back to the village. Mama Kessie quickly prepared a potion from the moonflower petals. The results were miraculous. Within hours, the fever broke, and the villagers began to recover. The fear that had gripped their hearts melted away, replaced by gratitude and awe. The village elders called another meeting, this time to honor Amara. Elder Bakari, who had once been her fiercest critic, spoke on behalf of the council. "We were wrong to judge you, Amara," he said. "You have shown us that true strength lies not in fear, but in compassion and courage. You have saved us, and we are forever in your debt." Amara felt a warmth spread through her heart. The journey had been long and difficult, but she had finally found her place among her people. With the village healed and the fear dissipated, life slowly returned to normal. But for Amara, it was a new beginning. She was no longer an outcast, but a respected member of the community. The children who once taunted her now looked up to her with admiration, and the adults who had feared her now sought her advice. Amara's relationship with the forest grew stronger. She spent her days exploring its secrets, learning its ways, and sharing her knowledge with the villagers. She taught them about the plants and animals, showing them how to live in harmony with nature rather than fearing it. The baobab tree remained her sanctuary, a symbol of her journey and her bond with the land. One day, as Amara and Kofi walked through the village, they came across a group of children playing. They stopped to watch, and Amara noticed a little girl standing alone, watching the others with longing in her eyes. Her skin was darker than the other children's, her hair a wild mass of curls. She reminded Amara of herself. Amara approached the girl with a warm smile. "Hello," she said gently. "What's your name?" The girl looked up with wide, curious eyes. "My name is Nia," she said softly. "Would you like to play with the others?" Nia Amara asked. Nia nodded shyly. "But they don't like me. They say I'm different." Amara's heart ached with empathy. She knelt down to Nia's level, taking her hand. "Being different is a gift," she said. "It makes you special. Come with me, and I'll show you." Together, they walked to the group of children. Amara called out to them, explaining that Nia was a friend and deserved to be included. The children, having learned from Amara's example, welcomed Nia with open arms. As Nia joined in their games, Amara felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had come full circle, transforming her own pain into a source of strength and compassion. She knew that her journey was far from over, but she was no longer alone. She had her village, her forest, and her purpose. And so, Amara's story became a legend in the village. A tale of a girl who, despite being different, found her place through courage and kindness. She taught her people that true beauty lies not in appearances, but in the heart. And under the watchful branches of the ancient baobab tree, her legacy endured, inspiring generations to come. There are a lot of lessons to be learned from this story. I would love to hear your opinion in comment section. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to like, share, and press the red button to subscribe to my channel. Bye.